Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Your Inside Track to Success. It's your host again, Stewart Kraintz. And as always, I brought somebody on the show today that I could not be more excited to have so that this person can share their wisdom, their insights, their experience, and even some of the tough love, if you might need it. I know she has been somebody that has absolutely been instrumental in my development, in changing my career, building a business, honestly, just helping me build my self confidence over the last 4 years or so. She is somebody that coaches individuals to create alignment and fulfillment, and honestly, just a life that they are excited about and lit up about and want to get out of bed and go do every single day. And so, without further ado, I'm excited to welcome my friend and mentor, Valerie Cap, on the show today. How are you, Val?
Hey, Stu, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to just dive in today and chat. So thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you were absolutely somebody I knew I had to have on the moment I decided to launch this show. But we were talking a little bit before we jumped right in and hit record. I would love for you to maybe just share with the audience a little bit about just the concept of alignment, what that is as it relates to our lives and why it's important for creating fulfillment.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a that's a great question to ask you, because a lot of times when you talk about alignment, people are like, "What? What do you mean by that?" So just a little backstory and context. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are listening and be like, "Oh yeah, I get what you're saying." Alignment is really about to me, it's about looking at what you value, what you want to experience in your life, such as the type of relationships you want to have. What are you focusing your time and energy on? And making sure that what you're doing and how you're showing up in those relationships and whatever the thing is, whatever the domain in your life, that it actually aligns with, what you value, what you want. And so I know you and I were talking about this before, we hit play, which is a lot of us grew up not even talking about this, or really having the guidance around what is it that you personally want? What do you value? What do you find exciting, right? We were told like, hey, check these boxes and it's going to be amazing. And you're going to have a happy life and you'll make money and you'll be safe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then many of us wake up and we're like, what the hell? Can I curse here, by the way?
Yeah, go for it. I want you to be as authentic as possible.
Okay, good. I should have asked before we hit record.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And talking about alignment, that might be a kind of a foreign concept, and how do people get in touch with what they want if they have been checking the boxes? Maybe they have the career that's really sexy on paper. Maybe they have, the income, the family, the dog, the house, whatever. But how do they actually discover what they want if something feels like it's missing?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the simplest way for someone to start that process is to really take inventory of their life. And what I mean by that is anybody can Google this. And Stu, I'm sure you're very familiar with the life wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can just Google the life wheel. And it's really about looking at each domain of your life. So it's looking at your relationships, looking at your finances, looking at your career, looking at your health, your spirituality, right? These different aspects of your life and measuring them out. One being, it's not working. 10 is I'm thriving in this area. Like, how do you feel, right? So we start there. It's just taking inventory and getting really honest about what's working and what's not working in your life, right? And that's the first place to start. And then really it's going down the path of, thinking about, well, what do I value? And that changes over time, right? Because what I valued in my 20s is very different than what I value now in my 40s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when someone's not sure or they're feeling just unsatisfied, maybe it feels like in a particular area in their life feels painful. They might be avoiding a change, right? Or just settling, because I hate that. I hate it's just fine. It's just fine. It's fine. Oh, that's
Oh,
like the kiss of death, that word, right? It's
yeah, yeah.
fine. I'm like, oh, please, like, and yeah, so I think that's really where you start is just taking an inventory and seeing like what's working, what's not. And then doing some deeper work around that's like, well, what would feel exciting? What is the vision that I have for my health? What is the vision that I have for my partnership? What is the vision that I have for the type of work that I'm doing and the impact that I'm making through my work? Right.
Mhm.
That's a starting spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And as people are continuing to do this work, as they're digging deep, at least in my experience, because I definitely had to do this myself when I transitioned out of the baseball industry into whatever else was next, because I had no plans, no fallback options at the time. And things felt very scary. And I'm sure a lot of people could feel the same way. Like, how would you coach somebody through a situation where maybe maybe what they are determining what they actually want is completely opposite of how they're actually living their lives?
hmm Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot. I think I don't think there's like one specific, magic tool, because I think that journey looks different for everybody, right?
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes making those changes to create something that looks completely different is actually just tiny steps. And sometimes it's a major shift, like you were in, right? Like you
Mhm.
quit a career and you moved across the country, and like most people don't have the risk tolerance for that. So I think the way that I would coach this is, first of all, understanding what's the attachment to the thing that they're doing already. So let's just say career, right? Like, let's talk about you, Stu. Like, you were working in Major League Baseball. Um, what got you to the point where you were like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't know what my next step is, but what was that defining moment for you?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, I can name a lot of specific instances, but I was 26 at the time. I remember looking around the sales floor at Yankee Stadium and being one of the older guys on the sales floor. And those that were more senior to me were, crushing it financially, making tons of money, but they were all absentee fathers and parents and, spouses. And I just didn't want that to be me. And, just that grind of getting up and putting on a face, like literally like a mask almost in the suit and tie I had to wear every day to go talk to customers that I didn't particularly like. it it
Mhm.
it just felt less and less doable as time wore on, I think, is the
Mhm.
best way to summarize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people come into that moment where they're just like, it's the little things, right? It's like you're seeing this, you're seeing this, you're seeing this, and then you know how it's affecting yourself, right?
Hmm.
Energetically, your health, like your mental health, all the things. So when someone is making a really big change, I really help them focus on the vision. What is the vision that
Hmm.
they have for themselves? And so I'm sure you've read Atomic
Yeah,
Habits by James Clear.
it's on the shelf over there.
Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of people have. It's one of my favorites. I've been following him for years, which is interesting. And I literally just started reading the book. Like, how's
Funny
that
how that works.
possible? I know, it's like I'll consume all the podcasts, the YouTube
Hmm.
videos, all the things. And then I finally sat down and read the book. But one of the things that he talks about is what can help you make and please add into this too, is one of the things that
Hmm.
will help you move forward is the vision, like the identity, right? You have to start shifting your identity. So if it's not this, then what is it over here? Right. So if
Sure.
Stu's not, this professional, and the major leagues, base, what is NBL,
Major League
MLB?
Baseball.
Yeah, Major League Baseball. I am clearly not a baseball fan, just putting that out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, you had this identity, right, of this
Hmm.
type of person, and crushing it, working for like the sexy job and all that. And then you're like, wait a minute. And then you had to get in touch with like, what's this new vision for myself? Like, how do I want to show up every day? Right. You knew it wasn't putting that mask on, being an absentee dad, even though you weren't, you didn't have a stepchild at the time. Right.
Hmm.
And I think that's a really big piece of the process, because it is a change, right? Whenever you're switching something. So,
Yeah, and I think that what I'm hearing you say, and also just reflecting on my own experience, is maybe I didn't have the vision well formulated. Like, I want this, I want X, Y, and Z. But I was just so clear that I didn't want this thing any longer. This, burnout, this fatigue, this literally having to portray an image that wasn't who I was as a human being every single day. And as a jumping off point, that was very useful. And I did go through a couple of years of bouncing around different jobs and trying to figure out and land on what actually worked for me. And I would encourage folks listening to this, if you find yourself in a place where you're in a career or maybe even a relationship, or even if you find yourself in like a fitness situation where you're unhappy, unfulfilled, like, yes, I think we want to ultimately get to specifically what we want so we can go manifest it and take the actions to create it. But if you're not there yet, knowing the exact thing, maybe it's valuable just to be really clear on what you don't want. And I'm
mhm.
wondering if you have any further insight on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a really great starting point, because I think where people get stuck is they're lacking clarity and they're lacking certainty, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what keeps them stuck. It's like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what the next step is, or I don't know if I'm jumping from one fire to the next, right? That sometimes keeps people stuck. And so, if you're clear on what you don't want, then you can draw a line to, sometimes you're getting closer to, well, what do I want? And
Mhm.
that takes time. And sometimes it takes experience to get clear on that. I like to say that action is what breeds clarity and confidence. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, it was over time taking these small steps, right? Taking these different action steps that ultimately led you to where you're at right now, which is really thriving in your life. I mean, without going into all
Well,
the
thank you.
details, but yeah, I mean, thriving with your business and your, the career, the family, and all that. Like, and so, you didn't just jump from quitting your job to that, right?
Mhm.
It was a process that you went through. It's a process of, trusting yourself, learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your decisions. And that comes with just taking chances. It comes with, you know, honestly being courageous to make a change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think another thing I would maybe add, and would love to also have you jump in, is being present to those little moments as well is also really important. One of the pivotal moments of me leaving New York City, after I had left baseball, I was working for a company called WeWork that has been, pretty infamous. And there are documentaries on it. But we were all flown out to LA to be a part of this, company event with all 13,000 global employees at the time. And I remember being in downtown LA, right next to the Staples Center where the Los Angeles Lakers play, like the busiest part of the city. And the level of calm that I felt compared to how I felt every single day living in New York City was a major aha moment for me. Like, wow, I need to get out of New York. And
Oh, yeah.
shout out to New York City. Like, it definitely helped me grow up and, become the man I am today. And also, like, it was clearly no longer aligned for me. And being just present to those feelings and those sensations of just being relaxed was important. And I guess the question for you, Val, is in your work with your clients and anybody else you know of that might be like go, 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 do, like I have these responsibilities, no time to stop. How do you encourage people to slow down and check in with themselves on that level of presence?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Stu. I think that is such a beautiful point to illustrate here is in that moment. I think like there's a couple different things I'll say here. The first is really jumping off what you experience is how's your energy feel in different places and spaces and with people. I think that's a really just like how are you feeling, right?
Hmm.
In any given point, because I think those are clues to maybe environments you need to remove yourself from, like you did in New York City specifically, or it can move you you know, towards something else. But most people don't take the time to do that. And I know it sounds probably, probably for a lot of people that are listening in Stu in your community, a lot of people probably don't know this, but the slowing down, you have to build the time in for that. But slowing down doesn't mean you need to check out for hours in a day, but it can be, and that's okay too, right? It's
Hmm.
okay to take the time. So simple things like meditation, just sitting quietly, not distracted by music, your phone, anything, right? We're so distracted by stuff coming at us all day long. But really checking in, I think consistently is like, how am I feeling right now? And that could be when you're driving your car, right? And if you're feeling
Hmm.
this discomfort, well, what is causing that discomfort right now for you? So it can be when you're washing dishes. It can be when you're, our best spots, right? Or in the shower. Well, why is that? Because we're not distracted by stuff unless we're listening to like a podcast, right? Or something. It's just taking those little moments of time. And for someone who wants to make a change in their life, you have to be committed to doing the thing that's going to help you make that change. Because otherwise, you're just going to stay in the cycle of like, I'm too busy. I don't have time to slow down. I don't know what I want. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And you got to get out of here and really do the things that move you into your body, because I think your body tells you so much more than like what's up here. Well, and I just pointed at my head for those that are listening, can't see me. What's in our head?
Oh, no, it's all good. I think they get it. But
Yeah.
what's maybe a big change that you've made in your life looking back that maybe has been the springboard or maybe a series of springboards, jumping off points for you in creating the life that you currently have? And maybe what's the biggest thing you had to overcome for yourself?
Oh my God, Stu. I'm like, where do I start? Which one's the biggest one?
I know, right?
Because when you're going through it, it doesn't always feel, I think when you can look back at the things that you've done, you're like, holy crap, that was like ballsy, or that was courageous, or I can't believe I made that decision. But when you're going through it, it doesn't always feel that way, right? It
Hmm.
feels like death sometimes, it feels like. Honestly, I think the biggest shift for me was when I've always known that working in a traditional corporate environment does not work for me. It just
Hmm.
doesn't. When I started right out of college, I mean, my career, I wasn't like a job hopper, but I couldn't find the thing or the location that was the right fit for me. And
Sure.
so, I dipped my toe into entrepreneurship and then kind of pulled back. But when I started to go full in on my business, which is the current business that I have now, I think that's where um, the biggest amount of growth for myself, because I was being exposed to people who were really doing life differently
Mhm.
because of the businesses that they had created. Because most of the people around me were working in corporate environments, or, at the time when this was happening, a lot of stay-at-home parents, or, everybody, I didn't really know a lot of entrepreneurs. So once I put myself into my first mastermind, it felt like the curtains had parted and I saw this whole new world of possibility for myself that I had never seen before. And once I saw that, I could not, you can't unsee what you've seen, right? And I was like,
Sure.
oh, I will not go back to that environment again. It does not serve me. I'm miserable in a corporate environment. I'm sure there's great places that I could work. I'm not saying that like, if you're in corporate, you should quit your job. That is not the right move for everybody. It just wasn't for me.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it was starting my business and really, really being committed to the growth of it is when I started to see the biggest impact of my life.
Yeah, awesome. And,
Mhm.
I also feel like I heard you talk about the value of community and also creating the relationships that you want to have in your
Mhm.
life and the ones that'll actually further you. And I know that in this era of smartphones and technology and whatnot, we have more ways to chat with one another than we know what to do with. And I think meaningful connection is at a low. And, there's all types of articles written about loneliness and all that. I'm curious, for anybody listening to this, how would you recommend they go about creating community or creating those relationships that would benefit them or help them support them in making these life changes?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I think the first thing is inventory of who's around you. And I say that not in a callous, like just cut everybody out of your life, but
Right, right.
you might need to you might need to cut a couple people out of your life. Or just put some distance between you and them. Right. What's the saying? I forget who it's by. You are the five closest people to you. Do you know this? Do you know the sayings too?
Yeah, I don't know who came up with that. I've heard it so many times,
Me
but
too.
yeah, like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, something like that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. I feel Jim Rohn is sticking in my head for some reason, but I don't know if he actually said that. So
Yeah, we'll look it up for sure.
yeah, we want to give credit where credit's due, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, okay, so the first thing I would say is take a look around you, and are the people that you're spending your time with, that you are sharing your desires and dreams with, are they supportive? Because a lot of
Mhm.
times people aren't supportive, and not because they don't care about you and they don't want to be supportive, but because they want to protect you, right? So,
Mhm.
oh, you can't quit your job. How are you going to pay for benefits, right? How are you going to, what happens? Are you going to make money? Entrepreneurship's hard. Starting a business is hard, right? I mean, these are like common phrases, right? And that's just because people care about you. Or what do you mean you're going to like pull your kid out of school and travel around the world? Like, what about their
Right.
friends, right? Like, what damage is that going to do to them? It's just, that's the first thing I want to say, is really taking a look at who's around you. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that you may need to find the community or create a community that is aligned with where you're trying to get to. So once you've already taken a look at that, if those people don't exist in your life already, I think it's a matter of, there's so many places to find community right now. I mean, meetup.com, you can find Facebook groups, you can, there's professional associations, there's
Yeah.
clubs, there's hobby. I mean, whatever it is, right? And just start putting yourself out there, right? Start putting yourself out, go to attend events, or, join groups. But you got to build connection by literally having conversations with people, right? Get into conversations. I mean, whether it's in person, over Zoom, on the phone. And it's not about just like, what can you receive, right? Like that energy
Yeah.
is very prevalent these days. The take energy, right? It's like, no, serve someone. And what I mean by that is just be genuinely interested in them, right? Ask them
Yeah.
questions, and through building that type of community, um, or having conversation like that, is how you build community, right?
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes it takes investing in communities, you know, depending on what your goal is. If it's, starting something completely different. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been in multiple business, spaces. You might want to pay to be part of a business community because it has the right people with you and maybe some mentorship behind it, or events that they run, or whatever it is. So, sometimes it is worth it to put yourself in paid communities as well. So,
Yeah. And
mhm.
I think this came up on another interview that we had on this show, but just the concept of coming from a place of service and giving, like
Mhm.
the whole, I know it's a book, the Go Giver, or the Go Givers Get More, something like that.
Mm.
But Matthew McConaughey has been making the rounds on a bunch of podcasts recently, and in almost all those conversations, he's talking about how when he was still a struggling actor, I think he had done Dazed and Confused at that point, but hadn't gotten another role. He wasn't getting anywhere because he was coming from a really needy energy. Like, I need this. And it was all about him and me, and what can he receive and who can he talk to that's going to get him this. And when he shifted to what can he give, that's when the doors started opening. He started being Mr. Rom-Com for that season of his career. And so what do you feel like people can give, especially if they're coming from a place of, I don't know what value I have?
Yeah. It's so funny that you're bringing this up, because I remember having a conversation with a friend one day, and I was really honest with her. And I said, I feel like every time you reach out to me, it's to just get something from me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was, and I was sharing that with her from a place of, I was lovingly giving her feedback, because I said, I feel like you have so much to offer, you have so much to give. And yet every time I have a conversation with you, it's about, what can Val do for you? What can I get from Val? Right. And so it started to feel like this real imbalance in the relationship. And so I provided the feedback to her, and she had said to me, I thank you. And I think it's a worthiness. Like, I don't feel like I have anything to offer.
Mm.
And I was, it was a really beautiful moment for me as well, to learn maybe why people show up that way. So the fact that you just asked that question, I was like, oh yeah, I've experienced this, right? For someone who's sitting in that place of thinking they don't have something to offer, first of all, it's just not true, right? I'm telling you, borrow my belief, you always have something to offer, whether it's your enthusiasm, whether it's your, you can connect people to each other, whether
Yeah.
it's you're in conversation. I'm like, oh, Stu, you started this podcast. I know this person who, maybe you should connect with. They're a great, they'd be a great guest for your podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always something that you can do. Forward an article to somebody, right? That helps build relationships, but it's because you've listened to that person to know what they like, what they need, what they're doing. And you can say, I don't know if this is any value, but I read this article and I just want to send it to you in case you're interested. Do you know how much like equity in a relationship you would get from doing that?
Yeah.
A ton, especially if you're trying to connect with people that people are always coming to them for stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And, for anybody listening, just a reminder, like, you have value exactly as you are in this moment. So if whatever you're doing, whatever you're up to in your life, you have something to give that is of value. And guess what? It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be a job. It doesn't have to be anything that our society assigns a ton of value to. Like, even just being someone to listen to, or just being somebody that they can confide in if they're struggling. Like, those are ways that I don't think are obvious. They get overlooked, but that we can provide value each and every day.
Yes. And I think especially right now, I just want to add this in,
Yeah, absolutely.
because people's attentions are attention, like attention span, not intention, in case that didn't come out clear. Attention is being pulled in 18 directions all the time, probably more, right? We're constantly, I mean, I fall into this trap. I'm sure you do too at times, Stu. I think
Yep.
that's natural because we have stuff coming to us, but your presence with someone is a gift. So
Yeah.
that doesn't cost anything, right? For you to be just present in the conversation or the interaction or whatever it is, that is the value. That is a huge value, just to be present. So I
Mhm.
just want to put that out there too, because I feel like that's an overlooked opportunity for someone.
Yeah. I mean, how often are we staring down at our phones when somebody's trying to talk to us, right? And like,
Mhm.
something as simple as putting your phone down and looking them in the eyes as you're talking to them, or they're speaking to you, because maybe it's not so much what they have to say, but it's just the feeling of being received and that you care.
Yeah.
And what could that shift in our relationships if we committed to that each and every day?
Hmm. For
You
sure.
know,
For sure.
so I know we've been talking about, coaching, the alignment, finding the alignment in our lives. What are some of the things that, you find your clients are currently working on that are bringing them joy, bringing them to the highest version of themselves, just in case it inspires anybody listening to this?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, my biggest focus with my clients is really supporting them and really taking the time to just pause. And I know
Mhm.
that may not sound very valuable to people. you know, I have a community with female entrepreneurs that are, constantly busy, constantly doing stuff. And what we shifted the focus in this community over the last year is just showing up to be present, to be witnessed, to provide feedback if it's asked for. And the breakthroughs in those moments of time of just, whether it's just a simple journal exercise, it's
Yeah.
crazy to me. And so, when you're saying like, what are my clients up to or how am I helping them move forward? It's actually slowing down. It's actually
Yeah.
getting in touch with what they want, truly what they want, and because if we're so busy moving task to task to task, and if you're a parent, then you're throwing the parenting aspect of it, right? We're not giving ourselves the time and space to check in. We're not giving ourselves the time and space to say, wait a minute, where am I out of alignment right now? And maybe a project I'm working on with a teammate or team member, with my children, with my
Mm,
partner, with
mm,
myself, right?
mhm.
Am I nurturing myself enough right now? Probably not.
Probably not.
Right? Probably not. Um, and so I think creating the space for that has been really impactful for my clients. And that actually seems to be really the biggest value for them right now. So it's really fun to be a part of and to not force them, but to create the space for them to do that for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, it sounds like we kind of have some parallels here with some of the coaching we do.
Hmm.
I find more often than not that folks come to me with their list of goals. It's almost always career, health and fitness, money, finance, things like, family relationships, their love life. Definitely on the back burner. They're like casually aware that it exists, but not focusing on it. And I just find over and over again, it's not about the actual goals. It's about how are you showing up in the world and how are you showing up for yourself. And so you spoke about getting them to pause.
Hmm.
And I'm finding that as something that is a theme with almost everyone I've ever worked with, and also myself, if I'm just going to own it. I would love if you could just speak into the necessity of the pause just a little more, and like maybe what are some of the benefits of actually committing to taking time for oneself?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. So the benefits of that are endless, to be honest with you, because when you take the time to slow down and check in and redirect where you're focusing your energy and time, it's almost like a ripple effect, right?
Mhm.
And it's not like you said, people come to you for goals and you're like, yeah, we'll work on the goals, but it is about how are you showing up. It is about the process of how you're going to create what you want. That's what I think is really important to land here too, because we may have goals that we actually never hit, right? We may have
Yeah.
goals that we exceed, right?
Yeah.
Or we may be working towards a goal and you're like, wait a minute, not this. this isn't quite the goal I thought I wanted to work towards. And so we get to shift and pivot. And so this is where that pause, that space, that checking in on the regular, maybe that's a morning journaling exercise or an evening exercise. I mean, there's so many tools and so many ways to do this. I mean, we could probably talk about 50 of them right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so I don't really want to spend so much time on that, but it's really about the dividend of what you're doing, the dividend of that practice, the dividend of giving yourself the time and the space to really drop in and listen to yourself, and really be honest with yourself about what's happening, and then get curious about what's not working, just as much as what is working. Double down on what's working. And sometimes the thing that's not working, you just need to shift little 1%, 1%, right? But you don't know that if you don't take the time to slow down. And again, slowing down looks different for everybody. There's no one way to do it. There's no like, you have to do it this many times a day or this many times a week, or I just don't believe that. I think consistency matters, right? Mm-hmm. Consistency matters for sure. But if you look at it as like a dividend of what you're doing, I think that's where the gold is for people. And that's where you're going to find the most satisfaction and fulfillment in your life, is when you take that time and space. So you can come back to alignment. So you can make those decisions. Did I answer your question?
I think you did, but I have a follow-up. And this is because I get this reflected to me all the time. And it's also something that I've overcome for myself, a limiting belief, on my own journey. Everything you just said, I know to be true. I know to be accurate because I've done it. I've done that work to check in, slow down, and get connected with who I am. I am often bombarded with the feedback, or at least the beliefs, that taking that time for oneself is selfish. Like, it's like, who am I to take this time for myself when I have a job, have a spouse, have a couple of kids, have like all these different responsibilities? And so what are your thoughts on maybe actually just choosing to be selfish and take that time for yourself?
Yes. Oh, this is a soapbox for me.
Let's do it. We got it. This is the venue.
This is the soapbox. So just recently, which my husband, incredible husband, Steve, he said to me, he's like, you're kind of selfish. And I was like, okay, so most people would not want to hear that from their partner, right? And they would take that as like a super negative. But here's the thing. It's not selfish to actually pour into yourself, because when I'm pouring into myself, I show up as a better leader for my company. I show up as a better wife. I show up as a better mom. I show up as a better friend, right? So it's actually not selfish. This comes back to paying dividends. What you pour into yourself is what allows you to support other people, to be in better relationships, to be more patient, to be more kind, right? Whatever the thing is with the people around you. And so it's just a belief that's not true. When you choose to take the time for yourself, you will see your relationship to yourself shifts. You stop going from putting yourself last to putting yourself first, because you see all the things that shift in your life appropriately. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about someone who puts everybody last. It doesn't care about the needs of their family. It doesn't care about the needs of the business, their team, their partner, whatever. This is not what we're talking about. This is about saying, like, this is what I need. This is what Val needs. And sometimes it doesn't work for my family. And then sometimes it does. And in those moments, I get to choose. What I see happen a lot with parents, especially women, is forsaking themselves for everything. And truly what happens in that moment is resentment, burnout, not even knowing what they like anymore, not knowing what they value. I just had a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about the top of this podcast, which was the word fine. She's like, it's fine. I mean, it's fine. And I'm like, well, what about you? What about your needs? I know you want to show up with your girls and be active in their lives and support your husband and do all these things, but what about you? You know? And I said, we get to do more than just be fine in our lives. We get to be excited about our lives. We get to want to wake up every day, jumping out of bed, and just get excited for what's about to come.
Mm-hmm.
And equally, when we put our head down on the pillow at night, feel satisfied with what we've created, right? Feel satisfied about the connection that we had. Feel satisfied that we poured into ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. Now, this doesn't mean every day is going to be utopia. This doesn't mean that you're not going to deal with stressful situations. Of course, that's life. Those things happen. But when those things happen, when you haven't put yourself first, when you haven't done this deeper work, when you don't give yourself the time and space to just fucking breathe, you can't respond to those challenges in your best way, your best self, or creatively, right? Because you're so depleted. I could go on and on and on this topic right here.
No. I want you to go on if you feel necessary, because I think this is something so many of us get to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Something my wife Jennifer says, she's been on the show, also a coach. She says that if we're not pouring into ourselves, our children get our leftovers. So
Yep.
like we end up invariably not giving our best selves to the people we love because we're not giving to ourselves. And it feels almost like a non sequitur, but it's true over time. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not pouring back into yourself, it's actually an unsustainable setup after a while.
Yeah, she's spot on. I totally agree with that. Something that I do, let me just give if this is a tool for someone to use, I just want to share this, especially when it comes to our kids, because I know this is, a subject that a lot of people are aware of and want to, just want to have a really good, fulfilling relationship with their children or their partner.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a certain dynamic in our house where both my husband and I work from home. Our son goes to school out of the house, but he comes in, we're still working, right? We have things happening or, tasks that we're working on. And he's 12, so he's pretty good about, giving us the space and what we need. But there's other times where he'll just walk in and start talking to us. And one of us is in like deep thought, deep process. And I can easily be like, I'm working right now, right? Like, or do you care about anybody but yourself, right? Like, why are you being so self? I mean, I can say any of those things. That is not my best self. Right.
Right.
So, yesterday he was off of school. Well, we both had projects we're working on. There's things that we had to accomplish. And so I knew he was going to be in the house and my day could easily be more disrupted. Right. And so in the morning, because I took the time to focus on myself and I journaled out, how do I want to show up today in relation to him specifically? I want to show up with fluidity, meaning I want to be able to not be so stuck in like, okay, here's what I'm working on. I can't be disrupted. I want to communicate my needs, which is I'm focused, I'm working. If you see my earbuds in, please don't come talk to me unless it's an emergency. And I want to be kind. I want to speak in a kind manner, right? And so taking that little bit of time, which so many people say they don't have, really set the intention for the day for me. And so instead of getting to the end of my workday where my son's in and out of the day, interrupting whatever, I was those things. I showed up that way, versus feeling angry,
Mm-hmm.
resentful, like,
Mm-hmm.
don't you know I'm trying to work? Like, because those are normal feelings that a lot of us have. So I think to your point, we have to pour into ourselves. We have to give ourselves the time and space. We have to slow down at some level to be intentional about what we want to create, how we want to show up, right?
Yeah.
So that's just one example that works for me. So I can't, and it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect because I am a human being. But when I'm intentional and I say, how do I want to show up today? It typically goes pretty well.
Yeah.
Typically.
No, 100%. And, thank you for sharing that example. And, it's funny, like you mentioned the journaling, you mentioned setting the intention. For me, it's exercise. I'm actually running a half marathon next week and doing the, the prep, the training for it has actually opened up for me what self-care works and looks like for me.
Mhm.
I am a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better employee, I'm a better, servant to my clients. Like whatever it is, like my stress is lower, I'm able to think more clearly because I'm taking the time for myself. And
Mhm.
kind of cool, but like I'm in the best shape of my life since varsity basketball in high school. And that's just a fringe benefit
Mhm.
because I'm taking the time really like 5 days a week to pour into myself in a way that I wasn't previously. And I would encourage people, you said this briefly, but the idea of, oh, well, I can't afford to take the time to do this. You really can't afford not to
Mhm.
if you want to be the best version of yourself. And what if by taking that time, you actually created the results in the other areas of your life that you're so focused on anyway? Right?
Mhm.
Like it's crazy how that works out.
Yep. It's so crazy and not crazy at the same time, right? And I would imagine too for you training for a half marathon, not having done it myself, but I'm imagining your
Sure,
runs are
sure.
longer, right? Your runs are
They're pretty
longer.
long.
Yeah. And so there's different things that you need to do with probably your diet, right? How you're, the time that you're taking to run, like a lot of different changes that could affect your family, right? Could affect like maybe what you guys are buying or how you're prepping food or the amount of time that you're going to be gone to do this. And then, that responsibility while you're gone could land on Jennifer or, to maybe be the lead parent at the moment, or I don't know.
Mhm.
There's so many variables here. But what I would encourage people to think about if they're in this place where they're like, well, my spouse or my partner would never support that, right? Or they're not going to do
Mm.
that. Here's the thing. When you ask for that support or take it, sometimes you got to take it. It's just like, I'm not asking you for your permission. I'm asking for your support. There's a different
Mm.
energy that comes with that. When you start showing up better, when you start showing up with more energy, with patience, with kindness, um, it's easier for your family to continue to support that because they feel that from you, right? They feel, or your teammate. This could be anybody, right? It could be your roommates, right? Whoever, wherever you're at in your stage, they can feel the difference in you. And who doesn't want to be around someone who is healthier, happier, more energetic? So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. It definitely shifts how you're showing up in the world. And honestly, probably is going to make you more attractive to the people and the opportunities that you are pursuing anyway. And it's just, we could go on about this forever and ever. And I know we don't have the time to do that today, but Val, I wanted to make sure that before we begin to wrap this up, you, I think I've given a ton of value today. What are the best places for people to get in contact with you currently? Like, where are you hanging out on social media and how can they connect with you, learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Stu. So you can always find me and connect with me on my website, which is thenurturingcollective.com. There's a way to get in touch with me there outside of just sharing what I'm up to and the different things that I'm focused on. I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram. On Instagram, that's more I share a lot of stuff over there. Getting a little more active on that platform. It's Val Cap Philly, or the Nurturing Collective, either place. So yeah, there's lots of ways to connect with me. But if you go to my website, that gives you even more ways to connect with me. And I'm
Yeah.
super happy to connect with anybody that wants to dive in and or ask questions about anything today. I love connecting. It's like my favorite thing to do.
And just for what it's worth, y'all, like I would not be the person I am today. I would not be the coach I am today without Val. Not
Oh,
only not only having worked with her in a formal setting, but also just as a friend. So she is great people. I know this was a super valuable episode because I kind of just get that feeling, when I'm like, oh, this is good. Like just so many nuggets. And, I can't thank you enough for being on today, Val. And for those of you that got value from this, please put it in the comments. Like, let her know what the most valuable takeaways were for you. And before we let you go, Val, I want to ask you one question, and that is, what can you acknowledge yourself for today?
What can I acknowledge myself for today? Okay, so I'm going to acknowledge myself for doing a kickboxing workout yesterday.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say the reason I'm acknowledging myself is because I notoriously just say, oh, I don't want to do like HIIT style workouts, and I was like, no, you get to do this. You get to do this for your heart. You get to do this for your mental health. You get to do this for all the reasons. And I did it. And so I'm just going to acknowledge myself for that simple, that simple step yesterday.
I love that. And, maybe the takeaway for you guys, like, just do the thing, try something new, make it fun. Because you know what? Joy and fulfillment are things we can choose and work towards. So I acknowledge you for, getting after it yesterday. That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stu. I had so much fun today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.